Welcome to Uncluttered and Unfiltered, the podcast urging you to let it go and don't look back. With nationally acclaimed professional organizer Christine Stone and self-proclaimed hot damn mess radio and TV personality Eden Kendall.
Welcome to another edition of Uncluttered and Unfiltered. I'm Eden Kendall, along with professional organizer Christine Stone of Neatly Designed. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. This is our Friends episode, and we'll get to that in a moment. But since the last time we've recorded, we actually had our first ever live appearance workshop at an IKEA locally here in Jacksonville.
So much fun. I loved meeting people.
It was really exciting when we walked in, and there were a few ladies that were there that were like, oh, let's take selfies together, or I've done this since I've heard your episodes. I've organized that. People brought you pictures.
I was overwhelmed by how sweet and nice everybody was, and they took their time out on a Saturday to come and see us. So I thought that was so nice.
And of course you carried it with your organizational tips, but we had some tears. There were some tears. We had some stories of people who had very and I think you see this much more than anybody can guess, some really heart-wrenching and inspiring stories of why they had to get organized.
I see it all the time. And that's why people say to me, when you're an organizer, you know, what is the best part of it? And they think it's like about the organizational part, but I love hearing people's stories, and I love helping people go from that kind of despair point to being so happy and smiling. So I really loved seeing everybody and helping people, motivate them and inspire them to get organized. So that was a lot of fun.
It was a great opportunity for us to make some new friends, and friends are what our topic is today. One person, when we posted originally the event page, somebody said, I would bet you $10 you couldn't organize my space. And I thought, I'm not going to take that bet because you don't want to lose that money. You'll lose it. Christine could come and organize your space. But
I could organize.
She could get you organized.
Any space.
But friendship is funny when you're over 50. It's easier and harder. In some ways, I know you have mentioned to me that you think it's much more difficult for you than for me because I run and I have a group that I run with, and that just kind of lends itself. But do you feel like you're not being exposed to new people on a regular basis?
I'm going to be honest. I think after 50, if you don't make the effort, it's not going to happen.
Right.
You know, when you had young kids, you would go to play groups, or you'd have sports that you would take them to, and you would meet all these women at those events because you'd see them over and over. But when you're older, if you're not going to make the effort, it doesn't happen.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say. And so we asked, we have this Uncluttered and Unfiltered Ladies Only Facebook group, which all you need to do to be a part of it is request to be added. And if you are a woman 50 and over, you can be a part of this. 40 and over, honestly, because we always say, if you're over 50, you found your people. But if you're, under 40, you can be in there too. So the question that we posted was a quick poll. Have you made new friends in recent years, and how did you meet them? We had lots of people who say running in the gym. I think that's something that just happens. But we had some really interesting ones too. Paddle boarding. And you might think
that's great.
It's great. And you might think, well, that seems like a pretty solitary activity, but there's actually a Facebook group that when we bought our paddle boards, we joined, and I'm sure every town and city across the country has one where you can go and discuss great places to paddleboard, group meetups, and find other people. And I've seen it many times where somebody maybe just moved to town. Hey, I just moved to town. I don't know anyone.
Yep.
So that's an opportunity to meet some people. Kathy in our chat said, yes, I've met new friends recently from meetup groups, and I'm assuming she means something similar like Facebook.
Right.
It's a good place to find similar tastes and talents.
Well, we had mentioned before early on that even some of the apps now have just for friendships, like women seeking friendships.
The Bumble BFF.
Yeah, the whatever that, I'm so bad at all these dating things because I don't know anything about them. But I found out through a friend of mine, she's like, they have, a section where you can meet other women as friends. And I think that's great. I mean, I think it goes back for me. It's just, when you work all day and you get into a routine and you're tired, you really have to just say, I'm going to go. I'm going to go. I'm going to do it, even if you're not in the mood, because every time you turn something down, sometimes it's the chance you could meet somebody new. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. Rita commented, walking my dog is where she says she's met new friends. We go to the dog park often. Now, we go as my husband and I go, but we still always talk to lots of people.
Right.
But I have to think that if I were to go by myself, I see other women there by themselves, and that would be a great thing. Like, hey, let's meet up again at this time tomorrow with our dogs. It's kind of like back in the day when the kids were little.
Yep.
But the dogs are the ones playing.
We have a dog, and whenever you take her out, everyone's always stopping and talking. So there are even small things like that, just walking alone, even without a dog, you meet up with people and start chit-chatting.
Church is another one that people have mentioned, obviously. That is always a great opportunity, whether it's a church, a synagogue, or what have you. Virtual friends that maybe, and I think that has to do with more of these, joining these groups online.
Yeah.
Where that is a thing. Now, a couple of people commented that they were recently divorced, and they said that they lost some of their friends in the divorce. That is a whole real life thing that happens where you don't want to necessarily hang out with your married couples when you're newly divorced. So you are looking for friends that are maybe either going through what you are going through or have been through it.
I think that is such a tough thing, because you do, from what I hear from people, you do lose friends. And sometimes that's even hard because you didn't expect some of them to leave. So it kind of makes you feel like, feeling something you didn't kind of expect to feel, like, oh, I thought I was the friend they would keep. It's like a competition almost. Mm-hmm. So I think when you're divorced, it's a whole different entity of friendships, because it does help when you find people going through the same thing you're going through, no matter what it is in your life. It's not the misery loves company. It's everybody loves company. Do you know what I mean? Everybody loves company. No one likes to be alone. And that's why I think women friendships over 50 are imperative for good health. I really do.
I think it's important for good health. I think it's important for great mental health.
Yes.
You have to have that sounding board. You have to have, and we don't like to generalize for the most part, to say everyone, we've had this conversation before, like everybody's different, obviously. But the one thing that I feel that I can say is I like knowing, and yes, I have this with family members, but I also like knowing that there's somebody who's paying attention to where I am going and what I'm doing. I mean, there can't be any worse feeling than just thinking like I could disappear for a week and nobody would miss me.
Right.
I
agree.
I think it's important that your friends know too that, if you were gone for a week, and let's talk about the kind of friends, and these are great kinds of friends to have. It's the opposite of the person who's checking in with you regularly, but it's the person who you don't talk to for years and years, but it's okay to pick up the phone. You're not going to get the whole, hey, the phone works both ways. There's not going to be the passive-aggressive blame. It's just you pick up where you left off. You're just happy to be back in each other's lives.
Yep. I as my mom once said, it's not how many friends you have, it's the quality of friendships. And I have told my own daughters that you could have hundreds of friends, but it's really the quality of friendships that you make. And to me, those are the friendships that I've had forever and ever and ever. I mean, over 30 years that are still in my life. And like you said, you could not talk for weeks, months, and the minute you talk, you felt like you just spoke to him yesterday.
Instead of dreading, and you might not even know that this friend would do that for you. So maybe instead of dreading putting off calling somebody, you just do it and pick up where you left off. That might be the case. The other kind of friend that you can have that is very difficult to acquire is the couple's friend. When you are a couple and you want to find a matched couple that's
a tough one.
Spouses like each other, the wives like each other, and
that could be more difficult than finding a woman friend.
It is 100% more difficult, and I don't want to focus on that for too terribly long because we want this to be for the women. But I think it has to be said, you meet somebody, a lady, that you're like, oh, this woman is going to be a great friend, but I just know that our husbands are not going to hit it off. So then you have to relegate that and not worry about that. But then there's these other times where they're pushing it, or you're like, oh, let's go out as a foursome. And like, we can try it, but let's, it may not work. It's like a double date.
Men's ability to be friends with everybody, no matter what, because they think differently than women. And so they don't get it when you say, I don't know if this is like a match for the four of us. What do you mean? Like they don't see friendships the way women do. They don't pick up on things the way women do. So I definitely think when you're over 50, especially with people that get divorced and then they have a new wife and blah, 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 it's very hard to find another couple that either you have something in common with, or you're a good matched woman to woman, man to man, or a woman liking the husband. I mean, you see it in all different ways. So I think just as you get older, maybe you just get set in your ways and you're not as flexible into what you're going to tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I also have a pet peeve in these situations where when you go out as a couple and maybe the guys are talking and then the other woman, this has happened to me many times, wants to have a separate conversation with you, but I want one conversation for the whole table. I don't like I call them sidebars. So I know that my husband had a friend and we would go out and he would bring his girlfriend and she would constantly sidebar with me. Like they'd be talking about something I found interesting, the guys, and she'd want to like take the conversation, lean over towards me and have a completely separate conversation. I'm like, no, please don't do this. I'm interested in what everybody has to say. It's a sidebar. We can't have sidebars.
Okay. And this is why her and I are different, because I love the sidebar. I love the sidebar. My husband is a golfer, so he talks about golf all the time. And so if I can sidebar away from sports, golf, I relish in it. I've been married for 30 something years. I want a sidebar. I look forward to the sidebar. But everybody is different. Everybody, wants different things out of relationships, whether it's couples relationships, female relationships. So you just have to figure out, what are you looking for? Exactly. You know what I mean? What are you looking for to fulfill what you're missing, I think.
Yeah. And that also brings up friends with people who are very different than you, because normally...
Speaking of us,
normally you do gravitate towards people who share all your same interests, who maybe operate with the way things are. And I do believe that when you open up your mind to being friends with people who have completely different interests than you might find that you can find that common ground and have a really great time together.
I totally agree with that.
I don't only want to hang out with friends that are doing everything I'm doing day to day. I would love to open up my, spread my wings, if you will.
I think if you get to know somebody enough, you will find something you have in common, whether you're both parents of adult children, you're empty nesters. I mean, as you get older and they're older as well, I think it's when you have the friendships with people that are a lot younger than you. And I am going to talk about this for a minute, because there's nothing wrong with having friends with women of so many different ages. You learn a lot. They learn a lot from you, I think, just because you have experience on your side. But you're never going to deny that they're at a different space than you, that they're at a different place than you, that they're going through different things than you. And that sometimes separates, the friendships, because if they have kids that are still in, middle school, and you're like, oh, God, that was like forever ago. Or, you tend, as I feel, in your 50s, to go towards people that are going through similar things in life, because if you want to travel, you want to find the empty nesters. You know what I mean? If you want to go and do things, because it's hard for people that still have kids. They have to get sitters. They want to bring the kids, so they're in a different place in their life. But I do think they have value in that type of friendship.
Oh, I have many friends that are much younger than me, and I feel like they lift me up. They inspire me. I love them, but they also not intentionally, not certainly through their behavior, just for being their young age, can make you feel kind of crappy if you had nobody else that was living through the things you're living through. It would be hard if that were your only circle of friends. It would be difficult. I'm not saying impossible, but if you only hung around with people 20 years younger than you who, listen.
Well, even 10 years younger.
Even 10 years younger.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah. So you'd be missing out on some camaraderie and some empathy.
Sleep.
And some sleep.
Yeah, because
remember early days when we talked about, I got the invitation to go support a friend who was doing karaoke, and she told me it started at 11, and I said, not it. Yeah. I can't attend something that starts at 11. Those days are long gone.
And you know what's funny? I think no one understands until they get to that place. They call, come on, you could stay out. Like they kind of try to talk me into it and make me feel bad. Like, oh, come on, you're not. And it used to bother me. I have to tell you, I used to be like, God, what? No, I'm going home. I'm going to bed. Now I almost laugh at it because, I mean, if you know me, if you're friends with me, I have a window. Once that window is closed, I'm done. I mean, I am 60 years old. And I mean, yes, for the game, Saturday night, go Jags. I stayed out way past my bedtime, but that was a once in a lifetime, thing. But I do feel like when you're out and then you go, okay, thanks. It's been fun. Where are you going? What are you doing? We're not done yet. We just started. And you're like, oh my God, so that there are differences when you hang out with different age groups because you just don't have the longevity sometimes that you did when you were younger. So you can relate to how they're feeling.
What about meeting new friends and making the first move? It almost can be like a dating scenario. Like this must be how guys felt back in the day when it used to only be the guy that would ask out. Nowadays, everybody asks everybody out and with apps and this and that. But like when you make that first move, like, hey, would you like maybe want to go grab a glass of wine sometime? Or that's a first move. And those can be very, very difficult as well. So I have all the empathy in the world for that. Now, let's talk about letting it go and not looking back when it comes to friendships that do nothing for you in your life.
Yes.
And that's a clutter that it doesn't mean the person is bad. It's just not a fit. It's not an enjoyable time. It's just something on your schedule that makes you kind of, tired about because you're like, oh God, I did tell her I'd have lunch.
Well, I mean, you're talking to the organizer, and I feel like relationships are exactly like getting something organized in your own home. Because if you are doing something that you really don't want to be doing, or you find you have absolutely nothing in common with a friend that you used to have everything in common with, but people move on in their lives to different phases. Some people you were best friends when you were single, so of course you have that kind of, then you get married, then they're still not married, so they're like, well, I don't have a significant other, or then you have kids, but they don't have kids. And so everybody, in my opinion, comes into your life for a reason. And every different phase of your life, you will have that friend that you were like, God, I couldn't have made it through this time in my life without her. But that doesn't mean she's still in your life now, all these years later, or that it lasted more than a few years, because that's how friendships go throughout your lifetime. But when you're older, you get that. When you're younger, you think every friendship should be for a lifetime, and it just doesn't happen that way. People move on. Friends move out of, you may used to have lived in the same city, and then you move in different cities. There's all kind of reasons that friendships they don't end badly. They just end.
I had a friend who, and we're still good friends, we never get together ever. And I think we just both know that we could always count on each other. But, she's busy. She's got younger kids now, even though we're close in age. Her kids are a little bit younger. And she once said to me, in no uncertain terms, that she likes to multitask as far as friends go. Like if one friend is trying to get together for lunch, regardless of if the two friends know each other, she'll be like, well, let me also invite this other friend. I'd love for you to meet each other. And really what she's doing is she's just trying to multitask, knock out both lunches at once, which sometimes actually works out nicely because the friends like each other, but I can usually spot that a mile away.
Well, I've been hearing that a lot. I think it's because COVID played a big part. People we're so used to not going out. Mm-hmm. And for them to go out a lot now, they'd rather do what you said. They'd rather group it all together because it's to put the makeup on and do the hair and put your clothes. It really is exhausting, I am finding, for a lot of people now. They got into a routine, which is what happens whenever someone gets into a routine. When you try to break it and go back the other way, it's really hard to do. So I have been hearing about that a lot. Like, well, I thought you and I were just going to lunch. And then it's like, well, I invite, because nobody wants to do a bunch of little things anymore. It's just like, let's get it all together.
Well, that's exactly what I'm doing on Thursday night. I'm having wine with a group of ladies that one is from an old neighborhood. One is also from that same neighborhood, but had moved away a long time before. And one just happened to be a mutual friend that everybody happened to know in that group. And we were just like, okay, let's make this happen. Well, do I think we're going to do it again for, in the next year or two? Probably not. It's just a catch up.
Right.
But getting back to this friend that had said to me, I multitask, I do. We actually went through a period where we said to each other, what is an errand or something we both want to do where we can just put our catch-up days in? And do you know, I wish I could honestly say to you that we have continued this for all these many years, because we'd be multi-gallon donors by now. But we used to make an appointment every however many weeks you were allowed to donate blood, and we would sit next to each other, and that's where we would catch up.
Yeah, I have a fear of needles, so that's not my date night. But
you'd be like, no thanks. But that was just our way. Yeah. So running errands together maybe a Costco run is another way you can do it. Just if you find that you're too busy or you're just trying to create things. That's, by the way, a good date for a woman to say to another woman she just met, hey, I don't know if you're a member at Costco or Sam's or BJ's, but I am. And if you ever want to go, I'd be happy to take you. There's just little things you can do to break the ice.
I honestly can tell you I don't think after 50 it gets easier. I just think you have to put in the effort, and you have to be open to, like you said, people's differences. They're not all going to be like you, but you're going to learn and take away. Like you and we're total opposites, but I have learned so much from just things that we've been doing together, and you would have never thought that because we're so different. So I just think that sometimes women after 50, they do get comfortable, they do get in routines, and to kind of open up your life to just a bunch of strange, people that you don't know much about can be scary. It can be really scary. And are they judging me? You start doing the thing in your head, like, what if they don't like this about me? Or what if they like to stay out later? You start to go, what if? Just enjoy yourself and go out, it doesn't have to be alcohol. It could just be go and play. My mother, who's 84, plays bingo, pinochle, bridge every week.
Is your mother ever going to come be on the podcast?
I'm going to need my mom to come on the podcast.
I would love it. Do you think we could make that happen?
Yes, I absolutely do.
Because from day one, you've been quoting her, and it's always something that's valuable, a real gem.
Well, I've learned at her age, like I'll say to her, you're exhausting me just hearing all you do with all your friends. I mean, she does more at her age than I do at my age. And I think that's a testament on, you may not have everything in common with everybody, but if not, you're going to be sitting around alone. Well, and those are the things, you know what I mean?
When my mother and father first moved into the after 55 condos that they're in down in South Florida, they didn't have a bunch of friends. They had several that my father used to joke and say, I think it's just because I can drive at night. Like we have these friends because I can drive at night. But they really didn't have any close friends. But when he passed, all the widows welcomed my mom in with open arms, and she became a social butterfly. And I'm going to ask you the same thing. When she was married, was she as social with other women?
Yeah, she was. My mom has always been very social with other women. But I do have to say, since she moved into this over 55 community, she is never home. She is unbelievable. So I listen. I don't pay attention sometimes, but I do listen and hear how important it is to force yourself to get out and be around other people, because loneliness is, I think, what, like you said, mental health wise can be devastating for some people.
There's I have a friend in town. She actually listens to our podcast regularly, and she's not a generation older than me, but she's about a half a generation older than me. In other words, her kids are a little, are older than mine, but, and I just love being around her. She just, I don't know, the way she just speaks so, I don't know, there's something about her. It's a momish kind of relationship when I hear her talk, more like an aunt kind of thing. But she's just lovely. And I think that's where it comes into like having friends of all different ages. But the thing is that if I complain to her about something, I expect her to be able to say, well, just be glad you're where you are right now, which is one thing your mom said back in the day. And then I feel the same way when I talk to younger people. That's why I think you need a good mix.
I think having older friends, in my opinion, I think having older friends, 5 years, 10 years, I almost feel like how people feel about our podcast and finding your people. I feel like I almost can prepare myself for what 65 is going to look like, 70, 75, and how much they make you appreciate where you are right now in your place. And sometimes you need people like that to say, I'm telling you, just stop and smell the roses for today, for next week, because this could happen or this happens, and you wake up one day and you wish sometimes you need those kind of reminders.
Absolutely, you do.
So
absolutely, you do. But it all goes back to, and this is something from Girl Scouts. Were you a Girl Scout?
Yes, of course.
Make new friends, keep the old. One is silver and the other's gold. So you can have those gold friends. You don't have to hang out with them all the time.
Right.
I love the suggestions, though. So if you are not yet part of our group on Facebook, and not to confuse you, we have a page, we have a group. A group is one that you join and nobody can see what you post unless they're also in the group. So
I think that is right there a good way for women to over
meet other
50
women.
To meet other women. I really, honestly, and I'm really bad at social media when it comes to stuff like that, and you're really good at it. And I have seen just how much everybody has enjoyed being on that. And
I'm overwhelmed by it, honestly.
Yes.
I posted that last night about the poll I told you about the beginning, about have you recently made new friends? How did you make them? And we have 26 really strong.
Yeah. I mean,
answers.
I have to say, I think doing little things like start off small if you feel uncomfortable, in doing something like that where you're in a Facebook group of people over 50, so you feel like at least you can talk the same language. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then, work your way up to, if someone invites you, go. That's what I mean, just go. And you don't have to stay long. It's just meeting somebody else. And believe me, I've had to do this because if it were up to me, I'd go home from work, get my cozy PJs on, and get in bed and watch Netflix. But, there are times I say, come on, get out, So I hear you if you're saying, with the makeup and the hair and the clothes. And sometimes you just have to do it, and you'll be so shocked and so surprised if you end up meeting a lifelong friend from it.
And that's really the spice of life.
Yes.
Get out there and do it. But don't hold on to the ones that are bringing you down, because that goes against our motto, which we're going to give you in just a moment after we ask you to do all the things, which is like, follow, subscribe, 5 stars if you have an opportunity. Believe it or not, that stuff works and helps with the algorithm, and we can make even more friends that way. So even if it's just sharing with a friend of yours about the podcast, that is so immensely helpful. You have no idea. So remember, with all things in your life, you can let it go
and don't look back.